Friends, a couple verses from Numbers chapter 11. Now the rabble that was among them, that is, the sons of Israel, had a strong craving, and the people of Israel also wept again and said, "Oh, that we had meat to eat. We remember the fish we ate in Egypt that was free, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, the garlic, and now our strength is dried up, and there's nothing at all to look at but this manna." Ugh. Now the manna was like coriander seed, and its appearance was like bdellium. The people went about and gathered it, and ground it in hand mills, or beat it in mortars, boiled it in pots, and made cakes of it. And the taste of it was like the taste of cakes baked with oil. When the dew fell upon the camp in the night, the manna fell with it. Now there are all kinds, that's verses 4 through 9 of Numbers chapter 11, if you want to read it yourself. There are all kinds of ironies in this passage. We remember the food that we had in Egypt for free. Well, it was free because they were slaves. And all the food they list in verse 5, it's almost like they're misremembering their time in the kingdom of darkness, as if their Egyptian taskmasters were waiters in tuxedos saying, would Sir like wine with his dinner or something like that. Of course their food was free. They were slaves. And now there's nothing to look at but this manna. And then verses 7, 8, and 9, the way manna is described, cakes baked in oil, that's almost certainly olive oil. Olive oil tastes really good. If you eat food with olive oil, it will taste really good. And you see in verse 8, there are a lot of different ways you can make it. It's not just the same kind of food it is manna over and over again, but you can prepare it in a lot of different ways. In Exodus 16, you also learn that manna had a taste like honey. Honey was the only sweetener they had in the ancient world. So it tastes really good. Manna sounds pretty appetizing, but the Israelites are tired of it. They're tired. They don't even want to look at it. You could see from the date down at the bottom of this video, I'm recording this in early January. Coronavirus has been a significant factor in our life since March, and London and has just gone down into a much stricter lockdown because cases are skyrocketing. My guess is that a lot of people are looking into the next months ahead, and that a lot of Oak Hill students are looking into the next months ahead and genuinely wondering how they're going to make it. God did not make us to live isolated lives. There's a reason why solitary confinement is the very worst thing you can do to someone in prison, the very worst punishment you can give, And even if self-isolation is not exactly like solitary confinement, this is not the shalom that God has for us. We all have those friends who are drama queens. There's always a problem, always something going on. They kind of like it. But my guess is a lot of Oak Hill students, a lot of people around the country are looking into the next months ahead and saying, without drama, without self-pity, really wondering how they're going to make it, how they're going to get to the end of the semester. Now, friends, in a situation like that, it is so appropriate and wise to take stock and ask, what kind of adjustments can I make to make life a little bit more bearable? We were in a faculty meeting. My wife actually got COVID. Thankfully, not a terribly serious case, but we had a faculty meeting on Zoom. People asked me how I was, and I said, well, I'm drinking more red wine than I normally do, because we were self-isolating for 2.5 weeks. It was miserable. Everyone laughed when I said it, and I was kind of joking, but I was also kind of being serious. I wasn't, waking up hungover or anything. I wasn't drunk. But I did kind of splurge in that area, took the edge off, made it more bearable. It's totally wise when life gets really hard to take stock and make adjustments. But sometimes even doing that, there is just a baseline harshness and difficulty and deprivation that goes on. And you're in the desert, not literally, but spiritually. It's a desert-like time in your life. And it's very appropriate to think about the manna passages in the Pentateuch when you realize that that's your reality. Sometimes we can make adjustments and it makes everything better. But sometimes we can make all the adjustments that we can possibly think of, and life is just hard. And we look into the future, and without pity or self-drama, we genuinely say, I don't think I'm going to make it. It's helpful, and I say this mindful of the fact, the typological connections with manna and Christ as the true manna and so on. Without excluding that or ignoring that, it's common for God to send his people into a desert-like experience as God orders your life, and especially for those going into ministry. He's going to give you desert chapters where you have to learn how to trust him desperately, like you never have before. This happened to me. I've said this in class before, so some of you may have heard this already. But when we lived in Edinburgh, we had one child who was very young, couldn't talk yet. I was a doctoral student. My time was pretty much my own. I was doing fun work. I lived in Edinburgh. When I would get tired, I'd go walk in Holyrood Park or just go walk around the city. It was glorious. It was gorgeous. Got a teaching job, an incredible mercy. It's so hard to find, at a school I loved and still love. But we moved to Canada, middle of nowhere in Canada, north of North Dakota, for you Americans, if that means anything. It wasn't as nice to go outside and walk around. And the demands on me went way up. I was teaching and lecturing, putting together classes and going to faculty meetings, meeting with students and grading. We had our second child. My daughter started to talk. My son was, kids just need a lot of time and attention. There's a lot of crying and screaming at home. My wife was just, so tired all the time. The demands on me, God ordered my life in such a way that the demands on me went way up, and the resources I had to meet them went way down. It was a desert-like experience. And without drama or self-pity, I started to say, irrespective of the next couple months, I started to say, I don't know how I'm going to make it through the afternoon. That is to say, I do not know how to be a good teacher, a good husband, a good father, show up at church. I don't have the resources to do all that. And I didn't quite phrase it this way with God, but I started to come before him daily and hourly, multiple times every day, and say, you had better help me, or I don't think I'm going to make it. I do not have what it takes to face the day. And God fed me manna. It was never on time, exactly. I had to wait, and it would not always take the form that I expected. But consistently, I'd have a conversation with someone that really encouraged me. That wonderful sort of sense where you take a deep breath and it's like, oh, okay, I can make it. Or I'd read something in the Bible, or I'd be reading a devotional book or a theological book, and there'd be something really beautiful and helpful. Or I'd read, a couple of times I even read something in a student paper that was great. Something would happen where God would help. And I'd get to the end of the day and I would be saying, thank you, Lord. Thank you for taking care of me today. Wake up the next day and say, hello, Lord, it's me, your problem child. I need more help. You are not doing anything wrong, and nothing strange is happening to you if you're in a desert-like time of deprivation. If the demands on you are very high, and you are legitimately thinking, I can't do this. It is no fun to have to trust God so desperately. I didn't like it. I like having God there, but I also kind of like having a nice, comfortable, easy life. Having to trust God so desperately, that's very uncomfortable. But sometimes God gives us a desert-like chapter in our lives. And friends, I know what it's like. I mean, I sympathize with you if you're looking into the future and genuinely saying, I don't think I can make it. In Psalm 37, it says, I once was young, but now I am old. Never have I seen the righteous forsaken. God took such splendid care of me in my own desert. Just consistently, he would send things my way, or he would just meet with me personally. I would open up my Bible, and it's like God's presence was there, and he's ministering to me. God took splendid care of me. And in exactly the right time, in exactly the right way, the desert ended. And in exactly the right time and the right way, he will end your desert as well. It'd be nice if we knew this was all going to be over by, April or June or whatever. But not knowing when it's going to end, that's part of the suffering. It's part of the trial. And friends, just when, I so hope the vaccine becomes a very significant factor very quickly. But there will likely be fallout from this. It's not as if once the vaccine stops and we can all meet together with each other, everything's going to be perfectly fine. There will likely be fallout, wounds. It will take us a while to get back to normal, emotionally, It is appropriate and normal to come before God. It can feel worse than it is if you've never had this experience. Reading passages like Numbers 11 is appropriate and helpful to say it's normal for the people of God, following God, to need to receive manna morning and evening from him at the right time and to wait on him. And it's appropriate to say, Lord, I desperately need your help over the next 2 hours, or I don't think I'm going to make it, and then wait on him. And friends, it's appropriate that we guard ourselves against complaining about being saved and running back to Egypt. And if the way you deal with the difficult next months is by developing a sinful habit, and that's how you dull the pain and negotiate this difficult time, that's essentially saying to God, I'm not happy with being saved. I want to go back to Egypt. And that's a serious matter. God bless all of you watching this. I know that this is serious. This is really not easy. If any of you want to pray or think out loud or anything like that, get in touch with me. It'd be a privilege to do that. God bless you. And may you, friends, part of the reason why God's sending this experience to you is so that when you're 45, you can speak to younger people and say, and you can know for yourself how bitter it is and how scary, how frightening it is. And at the same time also say, God is going to take splendid care of us.